India Charts publishes Nifty daily video updates, the weekly Elliott Wave outlook, and the long short report covering all asset classes.
Hi everyone, this is the 10th of August 2021 and the Nifty surpassed last week's high, which should really be getting everybody which is enthusiastic about the market action. But really speaking, that's not what it's feeling like. And the reason why it's not feeling like that has something to do with the market's pattern that we have actually been seeing recently and for quite some time. I would have really thought that this breakout past 16,000 would have changed it for good, but it has still not done so. So what the pattern has been is that when the Nifty was flat all through the corrective phase in the month of April, May, and then once again after that short rally in late May, we also saw again a long consolidation in June and July. And throughout this period, we've actually seen outperformance by the mid-cap space. So mid and small cap indices or stocks have actually done very, very well. The breadth was very strong. But a while back, maybe more than a month back, the breadth started to taper. So we actually seen the advanced decline averages start to come down even as the market was consolidating. Hope was that when the market breaks out, then possibly the breadth will also widen. But what has happened so far, first few days of the rally, the breadth is still weak because the mid-cap indices have sort of slowed down. So they were flat. Yesterday they tested the 20-day moving average, but the mid-cap index didn't close below it. So I was open to the idea if it closes, maybe it can go back to the 40-day, test that also. But that's not what is happening today. So the Nifty is in fact surpassed last week's high, which is sort of a continuation of the existing trend unless any new information comes up. So we are going to be in wait to see that breadth come back, because it's only when the mid and small caps start broadly participating on the upside that we actually get these advanced decline cycles move on the way up. Otherwise, you'll continue to see a divergence in breadth relative to the market, and that will continue to make people feel that something is not right. But that might not necessarily be the case. All we have seen is outperformance of mid caps over large caps for almost 5 to 6 months. And now all of a sudden large caps start participating and the mid caps are underperforming, and that is making people feel uneasy. But it's just a shift in the way the market is positioning itself. Now we've also seen sector wise rotation. So over this time period, you had banking that was doing well prior to February. Suddenly banks are not doing well. You had the second wave. You don't have auto stocks doing well. You continue to have performance in the metal space, also in some of the pharma stocks, but recently they are also not doing well. And then so it shifted to IT. IT's continued to do well, for this entire move. Recently, last few months, it went through a consolidation in the prior phase. Possibly, Jan, Feb, March, it was consolidating, and it broke out of that consolidation and has started to head higher. So what it is doing, therefore, I think, is possibly in a fifth wave, it is beginning to extend into waves 1, 2, and 3, 4, 5. So we are in the third of that structure, 3, 4, and 5, which is 2 more rallies to the upside with one consolidation in between, is what might be still pending for the IT index. Now, apart from that, what we've also been seeing, which has caused a lot of volatility, is the fear of the dollar rising again. Now, everybody's gotten clued onto what the dollars really means for the markets, especially the reflation trade that I wrote about more than a year ago. But what's happening now is, so when you generally look at the reflation trade, we understand it as a broad move up in all asset classes, right? So not just equities, but commodities, precious metals, real estate, everything moves up together. But suddenly, from August of last year, precious metals diverged and stopped moving higher. But the dollar continued to, fall. And then after that, we got those bounces, small bounce in September, October. Then we got a bigger bounce in Jan to March. And then after that, it looked like the fall in the dollar had resumed. I definitely thought so. But we've once again ended up with another bounce back, which has been a pretty steep retracement, almost 80% retraced for the previous fall. And so every time it ticks up like it did on Friday, it created a lot of fear, and specifically we saw a panic reaction yesterday in the gold and silver market, and then that rubbed off on the commodities, especially base metals, not so much on the agro commodities. And so for the first time in a while, I think base metals started to feel like, oh, are they really going up or are they going to break down? Because I've been saying for a while that even when the dollar is rising, equity prices and base metal prices have actually been, outperforming themselves. That is in terms of relationship to the dollar, they've sort of done better. So they are really not reflecting that strength in the dollar and what a rising dollar should have done, to the metals or equity markets if this was really a deflationary move. So that's definitely missing. And therefore, I sort of pulled that fear out from, my market analysis that, there's going to be a dollar rise and things are going to fall apart. So that's worked so far, but we got this fear back yesterday. And so it's been, 1 day of closely watching that action. Is it just a one-day knee-jerk reaction or is it something more sustainable? Now, one of the things which happened in terms of sentiment is the sentiment against gold ended up at 8% overnight, which means now it's in single digits. In other words, 8% simply means that 92% of traders polled are actually bearish on gold. And this is a global poll that is done by European Service and tradefutures.com does it, called the Daily Sentiment Index. So I just published that this morning, and silver is close to around 11%. Both are very, very low readings. And so these low readings are sort of indicative that you could end up getting, or you may be coming close to the end of what's been almost a 1-year corrective phase in the precious metals market, and specifically gold, because my sense remains that gold is in a long-term, bull market, which is why every time it forms a bottoming formation, I end up calling a bottom. Couple of times I did get a rally. Only thing is that after we hit the 2000 mark, we haven't had rallies that have gone back to new highs. So every time, it's bounced back, the rally has failed, and then once again we ended up with a lower low. So now we are retesting the low we made more than a month back, and this point is also a 61% retracement of the entire rise that we've really seen from the pandemic lows. Okay, so will that low break? Now, given the sentiment, I doubt it. Otherwise, we could have actually taken the entire rise from 1500 to 2000 as wave 1. But the quarterly and monthly charts actually don't agree with each other so clearly. And so it could be that we are only subdividing each wave into, the initial first and second waves, which is why the post-pandemic rally, which is a second impulse, has retraced 61.8%. So it's a nice support. It would be nice to see a double bottom there on extreme sentiment. The other factors which have really affected gold have been actually the positioning. One is the internal positioning, which is all the long positions that have been in gold have actually not been unwound. So these long positions have been in existence even prior to the pandemic. We had the fall in March 2020. And that also did not lead to an unwinding of the long positions meaningfully. Markets rallied, gold went up to $2,000, and now again it's hit a wall. Some of that positioning has actually reduced, okay, in this correction, but again it's not gone back to zero or gone back to the short side. Sentiment has. So sentiment and positioning are sort of not matching each other, which is something we saw also in March of 2020. So maybe that's just a new normal of how things happen. So right now, I'm not really going to pay too much attention to the positioning. I'm going to let that run. Maybe there's been some unwinding. That's the good news. More unwinding in silver than in gold. And so there's room for positions to get added back. And that's typically what might happen in a bull market, right? The bulls do get paid in a bull market. And so it's right to call the gold run a bull market, except that we've had a 1-year long correction inside of that bull market. And so that sort of became the first concern. The second thing we've seen that typical of reflation trade, everything should have gone up, right? If equities were rising, metal prices were rising, agro commodity prices were rising, and all the related stocks are rising. So why is gold and silver going the other way? Why are they inversely correlating with the entire inflation thesis? So the only reason I can think of is that a lot of money probably went into precious metals on the safety trade. People thought that there was a serious problem in the markets, either the risk of deflation or the risk from the pandemics has led to a lot of money go there. And now as those risks were getting alleviated and people started to sense this reflation trade, which means there were better opportunities in the stocks underlying the base metals, underlying the chemical prices, underlying prices of anything. So reflation is essentially you have prices of everything going up. Producer prices are all rising. And as they are rising, earnings of the companies are rising. And so the opportunity to make profit by owning those stocks actually went up. And because those opportunities went up, people started to again move money out of the safety trade, which is gold, back into stocks. That could be one near-term factor. The other one could possibly be the attraction towards Bitcoin. It's been talked about a bit. I don't know how to really measure that, as it has shifted from gold to Bitcoin in terms of value, but it's a known debate. And so possibly that could be another attraction that caused that shift. So because after all, last year we did end up having a serious rally in the cryptocurrencies. Now we've seen a correction recently, but that rally is picking up steam again. And so as that rally picks up steam, liquidity is again picking up. That has to show up in all assets. It's showing up in equity. It's just not showing up in precious metals as yet. And possibly the sentiment data is showing that it's about time that we get that turnaround in precious metals. So you shouldn't get too bearish on it. You should possibly just wait, let the bottoming out happen. Okay, let that extreme selling take place, and then there should be a turnaround. In fact, there's this interesting intermarket divergence. I track a couple of the gold and silver stocks which are listed in the US, and if you actually look at the chart of say one of them, say First Majestic Silver. Okay, so that's the code is AG, and then I plot it over silver. The recent silver crash over the last 4 to 5 days has actually seen an underperformance by the stock, which means it did not make a lower low compared to the silver price. So when you get that kind of an intermarket divergence, it's also a signal that the stocks are not willing to pay attention to the price of silver, and that could actually mean that we've overshot to the downside, because a large part of yesterday's sell-off actually came in early morning trades, a time when most traders are inactive, and even a small amount of selling by some big banks could really have caused that reaction. So conspiracy theory can also float around on what really caused the price sell-off in precious metals, but I'll simply look at sentiment as a gauge as to where we are likely to be and likely to head from here on there. So that's the entire thing. You've also got a lot of positive data coming out of the US in terms of services growth, industrial data. And you have employment data. So employment data is actually showing the pressure on wages picking up. So wages are actually starting to rise in the US. And a lot of these data points which were looking like, okay, because you had such a long growth on monetary policy and government stimulus, that possibly now it would taper as the stimulus goes off in September, and you would get those base effects would go away. But this data is really showing that it doesn't want to slow. It's like still overshooting on the upside. And if jobs keep coming back as the stimulus goes away, then that sort of is another. And if you are actually able to pay better wages, because after all, the government also was paying a higher rate in the pandemic relief packages. So what they were paying each and every individual was actually higher than what they usually do, and was actually making it attractive for people to not take up those jobs. And now that package goes away, a lot of people will start taking up jobs and will also be demanding higher wages. So that's, I think, a trend which is now apparent in the data, and so that will keep consumption at a higher base. So all of this is also pushing investors to think that they need to be in equity relative to PMs. And I think the last part of this panic selling which we've seen in the last 2 days is actually associated with that, because that data all came on Friday, and then suddenly you had the sell-off in precious metals. So I think people who've been taking that safety trade are really getting out. And now what you should see is again developing is the reflation trade to gold and silver coming back, and they're at a huge discount to where most of the base metals and commodity prices have moved, and that gap needs to get bridged, I guess. Or possibly what a rally in PMs would really imply is that you start a new third wave in the reflation trade, which is what the dollar would reflect once it starts its bear market. So whether it starts it from now, which is what I think, because you had an ending pattern in the dollar. Okay, so after that I thought this is it. It should have started to decline, and it did. And the bounce has really not gone back beyond the high that we made after the ending pattern. But just because it's bounced, there's been a lot of fear that there can be a larger dollar rally. My sense is that even if it goes beyond that recent high, I'll draw a parallel channel. You'll go to the top end of the channel, which can be closer to 94. But I don't think this is a runaway move in the dollar. I'm pretty clear that we remain in a dollar bear market unless completely proven wrong, I'll stick with that view for the time being. And so accordingly, the expectation remains that prices rise or remain elevated. So the only thing is, on the counter side, do you get sufficient growth to match those prices? And so then those rising prices don't become a issue in terms of you hitting the stagflationary environment. So what you don't want is stagflation. Then you have an environment where equities go down and inflation remains elevated. But if growth can pick up and stay there because of government spending and intervention in the economy, then you have an environment where you have both growth and inflation next to each other. And the only thing you bother about is that inflation should not be so high that you have to raise interest rates. I think that's what most central banks are trying to do, is hold back on raising interest rates. So far, at least they're promising not to do so for the rest of this year. And unless there's a serious surprise on the upside on the inflation data, they're most probably going to just ignore it for the time being, looking at it as being transitory. And at the same time, we should not forget the RBI has helped seriously during this phase through its QSAP program of buying bonds. And now in its recent RBI policy has stepped back to actually, take some of that liquidity on, take care of some of that liquidity, excess liquidity that is in the system. So they are doing their balancing job of, keeping enough liquidity out there, keeping interest rates at the lower end. And while bond yields have punched up a bit on a long-term retracement basis, the retracement is barely, not even 23% of the fall in bond prices that you have seen. That means in bond yields that you have seen. So Indian bond yields, which declined significantly, barely retraced, are just in a narrow range. And at some point of time, I think once the fears around inflation and all this data go away, or maybe if growth sort of tapers, I wouldn't be surprised that we actually start lowering interest rates further. So my long-term sense remains towards lower interest rates now. I've sort of stopped, expecting that rates would go up like I was doing before 2020. And that was a different environment where, you had the rising dollar and you had the risk of deflation. That somewhat has been put away. And that doesn't mean you're out of the, see, the definition of an economic winter is essentially a period where you have high debt and you have to deal with it. So you remain in a debt, in a winter till you deal with it. The question is how you're going to deal with it. If you're going to deal with it by allowing people to default and corporates to go under, then you end up getting an outright deflation in the economy and equities go down. So that was an expectation up to 2020. Now, because the reflation trade essentially is an attempt to deal with the debt to GDP ratio, to actually push up your GDP through some amount of inflation and let the debt to GDP come down, because nominal GDP goes up a little because of rising prices, and then the debt remains flat, and then you lower interest rates, making it manageable. And if you can manage to do that without really getting the risk of very high or hyperinflation, then you sort of sail your boat through a corrective phase in the economy on the debt side over like a 5 to 8 year kind of time period. So that's what I think is being tried out. And as long as we don't get any serious conflict on the inflation side, most central banks are going to try and move in that direction, which means that eventually we're going to try and lower interest rates and keep inflation manageable. That's, I think, the end objective, irrespective that we are seeing rising prices because of producer prices and metal prices going up. As long as oil prices don't rise very rapidly or food prices don't rise very rapidly, small increases in prices are going to be allowed, and the system is going to absorb it and accept it. That's I think going to be the environment we are in, and that's where you have to then look for the opportunities on the upside that come in this kind of an environment. That then sort of also justifies what we thought were very high price earning ratios. So now if the market continues to move up slowly and the reflation on the GDP side continues, then earnings will sort of catch up and keep normalizing what we think is an extremely overvalued market. So that's the thing to watch on a quarter to quarter basis as these numbers, earnings numbers, GDP numbers keep getting produced. And it's only when that entire model that the central banks are trying to follow hits a wall, becomes risky, or something makes it not work in the way that they're trying to make it work, is when markets will have a serious hiccup. So till that point of time, look for rotation. So if you don't like the way the Nifty is behaving, look at sectoral rotation. That's pretty much worked over the last 4 to 5 months. So I think with this Nifty breakout, you should get the large cap participation, and a lot of the sectors that were underperforming should join in. That's my sense of it. But even if you sense otherwise, look for opportunities on a sector rotation basis or a stock rotation basis rather than focus on areas of weakness. That is because after all, in the end, this is ending up looking like a bull market. So that's all from me on this update for you today. Thank you.